Oh, excuse me. Alright, everyone, this is Ash. Welcome back to the King's Speech. Apologies, I was MIA last week, but I've been fighting off a really nasty cold and a really nasty throat infection, so I've been coughing and hacking everywhere. I just finished recording one of the Akane-Banashi reaction videos, and that one was still making my throat act up really badly, so I'm going to try not to modulate my voice too much so I don't irritate my voice too badly. But like I mentioned at the start of that video, I'm just going to do a few channel updatey things before we dive into the chapter stuff here. So plan today is to get around to at least the Shonen Jump chapters that I've been missing out on. So we're getting around to Akane-Banashi, Kaiju number 8, and the Spy Family chapters today. Depending on how I feel, I'm going to try to get to at least one volume of Yona of the Dawn. But my throat was not having it with the last chapter of Akane I just did. Excuse me, like I just said, my throat is really not having it today. So we'll see how I feel, but I want to at least get to the Shonen Jump stuff. And then the Yona of the Dawn read-throughs might have to resume next week once I've had a chance to get my throat rest a little bit. But we'll see how all of that goes. But yeah, we're going to get into Akane-Banashi chapter 48 here in just a second. But like I mentioned in the last couple of videos I've been doing, I'm trying to grow my channel this year by being more consistent with content creation, as I mentioned a couple of times. Last week was the exception. I didn't get around to doing videos last week because, of course, I was sick and out of commission, and I don't think anyone wanted to watch an entire video of me trying to speak and then just coughing and hacking up a bunch of phlegm and sneezing all the time. So, yeah. So now that I'm feeling a little bit better, hopefully we'll be back to your regularly scheduled programming. So with that said, as always, if you like my content, please do consider commenting, subscribing if you haven't already, because YouTube's algorithm really loves it when you push those buttons, because that teaches it that the videos you're watching are worth promoting to a wider audience, which really helps me out a lot. So if you'd like to do that, that would be greatly appreciated. Without further ado, let us get into it with Akane-Banashi Story 48, Fetching Tea Part 2. Excuse me. It's story by Yuki Suenaga, art by Takamasa Moe, with translation by Stephen Paul, lettering by Sneer Aaron, and Rakugo supervision by Keiki Haishiya. And then we see a flashback to when Akane did the second retelling of Fetching Tea to Urara, and she goes, "So now I've seen your version of Fetching Tea. Is that really how you're going to play the Oiran?" And Akane is like, "Yes, I figured it out. The story is your friend." And both Akane and her friend are just staring at her like ... like uh-huh. And then we pick up back on the stage with Akane continuing her performance, going, "Would you keep visiting a woman like me to keep me company?" So I says, "Sure, I'd love to come in here, baby." It's like, "So then, what do you suppose the Oiran says next?" It's like, "In March of next year, I'll have reached my full term under this roof. The moment my time is up here, I would like to live with you instead, lead a domestic life. Would you take a woman like me to be your wife?" It's like, "Oh yeah, it'd be crazy not to." And reporter bro is just sitting there like lips pursed, just completely unsure of how to take this. It's like, it's funny, but a very uncool and unbefitting of an Oiran. In every retrospect, the opposite of Master Urara's way of performing her. It's like, why did she go this route? And you go back to the flashback again with, "I tried going on a date in an attempt to understand the Oiran's mindset. I looked up all these tips on the best ways to entice a man, and they did not work." It's like, I'm not surprised. So when I stopped overthinking things and just hung out normally, it was fun. That gave me an idea. Rakugo and people are the same. It's all in how you approach them. And you see Rokuro kind of like silently watching this as you have, "Why did you teach her fetching tea?" And Urara tells him 2 reasons. For one, I wanted to see if she could appraise herself honestly and match an objective view of her strengths to the story she's performing. And Rokuro's like, "There you go, asking the impossible again. And she's like, don't be rude. I assigned her that task because I believed that she was capable of it. Seeing as she passed, I take it she met your bar. And then Rara thinks back to, I see. So that's how you'll perform fetching tea. And Akane is like, right. It's like, oh, but that's just how I'll perform it for now. It's like the same way that you treat people differently depending on how long you've known them. And she thinks back to like her friendship slowly evolving with Jumbo. It's like, I'm sure that as time goes on, I'll develop a different view of the Oiron's mindset and see things I couldn't see before, which will change my relationship to the story and how I perform it. My fetching tea is a story I'll know personally for years and years to come. In other words, it'll be my friend. Nice. So I can't tell if she's exceptionally smart or exceptionally dense, but I'm not opposed to teaching kids like her every now and then. Nice. And Rokuro was like, why don't you pick out some more stories to teach her? And Rara's like, oh no, I've already given her the best one I can. Remember what I said? I had 2 reasons. Out of all the Akane-Banashi there are, nothing suits her better than fetching tea. We pick up back with Akane going, if you're fine with that, Oiron, I'd make you my little lady. It's like the Oiron was so happy that she just starts crying right on the spot. But then I noticed something. All of a sudden, this little mole appeared right next to her eye. It's like a mole, and would you believe it? The mole just starts sliding down her cheek. So I take a closer look, and it ain't nothing of the sort. She had a cup full of tea sitting right next to her. It turns out she was using tea to make it look like she was crying. You see like a little image of the Oiron like putting her finger in the tea and just like dripping it next to her eye. It's like the whole sob story she told me was fake. And what I thought was a mole was just a bit of tea leaf that stuck to her finger. And you see reporter bro going, of course, I'm such an idiot. The whole point of fetching tea is that the second half of the story comes after the Oiron's ruse gets exposed. All of the unnaturally goofy bits from earlier are, it's like as of this moment, you see the audience guys be like, oh, it's like that's why she adding an extra layer of credibility to the story. You have, at this point in my life, I may not have the bewitching allure of Master Urara or the ability to tease and flirt with men. But because of that, I know how it feels to be an Oiron who's a screw-up. And it's like the story is your friend. When you are true to yourself, the story takes on a new life. It's like I've been performing with an eye on the second half. This is where my fetching tea really starts. Excuse me. Oh, alright. So, thoughts on the chapter, I guess. So, I don't know if we really need like all the extended flashback stuff in this, but I appreciate the fact that we're kind of getting, or so I guess start with like the criticism in the last chapter was like, you know, we're kind of getting into kind of like, what's the word I'm looking for, like the pitfalls of, you know, trying to do something like Rakugo in manga's medium, like the weaknesses you kind of have to overcome with regards to that. So I appreciate how this chapter is kind of like trying to God, I'm sorry, my brain is just so dead right now. I'm trying to like downplay, I guess, some of those weaknesses by having like Akane just like do a little explanation of like, you know, what her approach to the story is, like why she chose this specific approach, etc. To kind of like give you more of an idea of like what the impact she's going for and everything, so that you as the reader can kind of like appreciate like the different nuances, I guess, of her performance. So in that regard, I appreciate that like we're getting like a little bit more of a peek into her mindset, as well as that of, you know, Urara and the others, and like what they're trying to teach her, like what lessons they're trying to impart to her. So I really appreciate, you know, that parts of it. Even if it does feel like, you know, a little bit too much, like, you know, they're kind of like spelling it out for you to be like, you know, do you get it? This is what she's doing. Like, this is what the performance is supposed to be about, etc., etc. Like, again, like most of it, I kind of intuited from the last chapter, even without the explanation. Like, oh, Connie's like doing this and this and that. So that's kind of like, I'm like, you know, I don't think the audience really needed like an in-depth explanation like as to why Akane's doing like this way or what she's trying to do, etc. All that. But I did like the metaphor of like, you know, the story is your friend, like how it changes and grows with you as you get older, and like your perspective to it changes as your life experiences change and stuff like that. I really appreciated that metaphor, especially. I think that was kind of really well done. But yeah, apart from that, I really like that. I'm looking forward to seeing more of Akane's development with the Urara in the future. But yeah. Yeah, I really appreciate that. I don't think I have much more to say. I'm interested in seeing what she's going to do with the second part of this. But yeah, this is a good kind of middle chapter for this. Yeah, so with that said, as always, thank you all for joining me. Thankfully, this chapter wasn't... Last chapter had me laughing a little bit more, and that was really aggravating my cough. Thankfully, this chapter was not as bad with that, which I'm grateful for. But yeah, as always, hope you all enjoyed this video. And if you did, as I mentioned at the beginning, if you want to like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff, that really does help me out a lot with kind of promoting my videos to YouTube's algorithm. Like I said, hopefully by next week, I'll be recovered enough fully that I can get back doing read-throughs, and also getting back to the weekly reaction review stuff for Shonen Jump. I fell a little bit behind this week, but thankfully not too far behind, so I was able to catch up relatively easily. Yeah, hopefully everything will be back to normal next week. But yeah, like I mentioned at the beginning, I'm also going to get around to Kaiju and Spy Family today as well. So look forward to those. And yeah, so until next time, this is Ash. I will talk to you all later.